Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today we have a very special guest, Gautam Ijoor. Gautam is the president and CEO of Alpha Omega Integration. Welcome to the show, Gautam.
Thank you, Otto. It's a pleasure being on this show. So thanks.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Before we start with the origins, if you can just briefly explain to the audience who is Alpha Omega?
Thank you. That's a great initial question. So Alpha Omega is a CMMI maturity level 5 on the development as well as services model company, which is also in the 8A program. We build mission-focused solutions for the federal government using high-end applications like low code, no code, serverless architecture, using basically three things: high-end application engineering, the low code, no code, serverless architecture. The second, high performance computing, multi-cloud architecture, and finally, robotics, process automation, artificial intelligence, IoT, machine learning, and the like. So our solutions have transformed the way federal agencies can do business with, provide citizen services at the end of the day. Our disruptive innovations have transformed the traditional mindset and enables our high performance agile teams to provide holistic solutions to improve performance in three areas: citizen safety, national security, and foreign affairs.
Wow.
That's a little bit about Alpha Omega.
It sounds very interesting as far as all the various things you're in right now.
Thank you. Thanks, Otto.
Yes. So if we can take it all the way back, Gautam, are you originally from the DMV area?
No, I didn't. I take that as a compliment that you can't really, pick up my accent, Otto. But I originally immigrated from India. Incidentally, it's 24 years and 2 days, and I know this because on the 19th of August, I was actually on the 19th of August, last Thursday, I was in a presentation where I was talking about the company and my journey. So it's just been a few days over 24 years since I came to the US, and I moved to the DMV area in 2002. Again, not to digress, but just kind of give you a little bit of background. When I came to the US, right, on my second day, I managed to get a complete assistantship to pursue my master's program, right? And for someone who's coming fresh off the boat, so to speak, it's a momentous achievement, kind of getting a full assistantship. I've always been driven by a sense of passion. And, since that assistantship about 25 years ago, this country has has always been a gift that has never stopped giving. And mine is just one of hundreds of stories that make the US what it is. A superpower, not because of the military might, but because they give ordinary women and men like me an opportunity and a sense of passion. Now, an Alpha Omega is my opportunity to kind of give back in some momentous way to this country. And so I initially was working in the dot-com bubble, right? Consulting on the East and the West Coast from 1997 till likely mid 2002. And then I came to the DC area in November of 2002 because I wanted to continue on my passion to give back to this country in some significant way. So sorry for that long answer, but I wanted to kind of give you the background why Washington D.C. and my journey.
Yeah, no, I love it. I have a passion for this country just like you. I'm a fellow immigrant as well. I just arrived here at a much younger age than you did. So I basically grew up in the Washington, D.C. metro area. But this country gives us so many opportunities that not many countries out there in the world do. And we're very fortunate. I feel I'm very fortunate.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad. So good to hear, Otto.
Yes. You mentioned, so you were born in India. We're in India.
Bangalore.
Okay.
It's in the southern part of India. It's called the Garden City.
Okay.
Well, now there's a lot of pollution there, but yeah, I was born in Bangalore, and so in fact, my first entrepreneurial ventures started in Bangalore in India. Yeah.
What was that venture?
Well, it was an underage nightclub, but the at the end of the day, Otto, while I was growing up, India had not yet gone into this economic transformation, right? And so you had a lot of youngsters that had a lot of time on their plate. Um, I felt, I felt like taking the opportunity to, kind of channel this energy in the right direction. I opened an underage nightclub from a failing restaurant, um, and it was an overnight hit because people just had a lot of time on their plate. Had to required me to negotiate a lease with the restaurant, and that was my first venture. No money down, one-page business plan, and that's has always been my what to say philosophy to get into an entrepreneurial venture. Um, the benefit, Otto, was that now I was able to channel some of the money coming out from this underage nightclub, discotheque, as we would call it, to allow underprivileged children to attend school. I was, fortunate to have gone to one of the best institutions in India, in Bangalore, for my for my elementary, middle, and high school, and so I use some of the proceeds to kind of give back to the community by creating scholarships for underprivileged children. My wife and I do that even today. But yeah, I'm sorry to digress again into details, but you're asking me questions on things that I'm passionate about, so I'm sharing a little more detail.
No, and I appreciate that, and I love how even at an early age you were already giving back. I'm curious, around what age was this? How old were you when you started the disco?
I was 16. I was 16. I just finished my 10th grade. I was a rebellious child, and I always wanted to do something that gave me a little bit of independence. Coming to the US was the same reason. So, yeah, I was 16, 7 months short of my 17th birthday. And so it was difficult to get people to seriously believe in you, at least in what is that 1990 India. You did not find a number of entrepreneurs my age.
I'm curious, in your household, I don't know if family or parents was there any entrepreneurial tendencies there, or
mainly my grandfather, my mom's father, was had kind of really built up several businesses from ground up, And so there was an entrepreneurial bug running through the family. My mom was a housemaker, but which was kind of very typical during her age in India. I mean, again, India has gone through an evolution like the US, right? So in 1940s, 1950s, US found a lot of women, not kind of going to work, but staying at home as homemakers. And that was the case with my mom. But my mom was, I would say, had very strong entrepreneurial skills. I feel that she didn't have an opportunity to kind of really use them. But all the same, she had a passion for starting her business and working on them. I would 100% believe that she would have been very, very successful, hundredfold more than my father if she had gone into business by herself. But it is what it is. I mean, it's also kind of developed in me that passion for women empowerment and supporting women-owned businesses. But that's aside. To answer your question, there has been a very strong entrepreneurial drive on my mom's side of the family. My dad's side of the family, a little less, but substantially more on my mom's side of the family.
Sure. So you're 16, you opened this new venture. How long did you have the disco for?
It went on for 3 years. I had to, kind of leave Bangalore city where this venture took off, and actually do my bachelor's in the Mysore University, which was about 2 hours away. Um, so I couldn't really give it the attention that it needed, and my priority was my studies. And so, I at some point I felt it was right to kind of shut down the business. um, I mean, I should have just sold it to somebody else, but my lease got over and I did not want to continue. I should have taken another lease and sold it to someone, but I was more focused on my studies. But thanks for asking. Yeah.
Sure. So then you move to a different town and you go to school. What are you majoring then?
My bachelor's was entirely in the environmental. My bachelor's was in the environmental field, environmental engineering. It was called civil environmental engineering because a lot of the environmental concepts required civil as the background. My books, publications, papers have all been in the environmental field, even after I came to the US about 24 years ago. Um, and my, again, passion, I mean, I just explained that always, I've always been driven by a sense of purpose. And so while growing up, it was kind of to give back to the world, um, you know, um, which had, I guess, which had made me fortunate to have gone to, good schools and had access to, um, access to knowledge wasn't a common thing for a lot of people before the internet, right? And so in India, very few people, a majority of the people were uneducated at that time, right? And they were from a farming background. Number of them didn't have an opportunity to go to school. And so I had an opportunity to kind of go to one of the best schools. And so I felt a drive to set an example to everybody else. Um, some of the environmental problems were very evident at that time. They predicted that you would have some of the environmental issues that you're having today. And so I went into the environmental field. This was at the time that the US was passionate about environmental remediation and so on and so forth. And I was still in India and I hadn't really made a firm decision to come to the US. So my passion was to kind of get into the environmental field and kind of work in that field because I felt that was valuable to communities and humanity as a whole. When I then decided to come to the US, in 1997, August 21st, August 19th is when I left India. I was able to kind of further that passion by getting into the computer modeling of environmental technologies. And so a lot of a lot of my publications were associated with environmental remediation, environmental concepts.
When you came here in 97, were you already employed with a company? I believe you mentioned earlier about as far as doing consulting, or did you come here and had to find something?
No, I came here to study. 1997, I
Okay.
came to the US to study, to pursue my master's in environmental engineering. Again, I felt the opportunities and the freedom that you had in the US were profound. And if you wanted to really uh, make a make an change in the world, I felt it was more important to do it when you have the independence and the access to higher institutions of education and research. And that's what kind of brought me to the US. That was in 1997. So I was on an F1 visa. After I graduated from my environmental engineering degree, I was working for the NJDEP as a consultant, New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, as a consultant consultant working on remediation and Superfund sites and their computer models. Um, and it was great. But then I also parallelly had, success has been a different, what success means to me has changed over my life, right? um, there has always been that common element of wanting to give back, right? My passion in my professional life is to kind of initially wanting to give back to humanity, to the world. And after coming to the US and doing my master's in environmental engineering, and then um, getting into the work stream, and I decided to kind of get into the .com, decided to make a run at the .com bubble, consulting in the East and the West Coast. I was leading teams that built some of the IT systems for startups in California, in the Bay Area in California, as well as leading some teams in the East Coast, right? In Fort Lee, New Jersey, and Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey. An example that comes to my mind is ToysRUs.com. I was consulting with them. They were, the largest e-commerce site at that time, and so I was leading teams to support them. But getting back to answering your question precisely, it's after my master's that I got into the work stream. I worked for NJDP and then decided to try to kind of give a shot at an entrepreneur. At understanding the industry before I started my entrepreneurial ventures here in the US. The common theme, and I was talking about what success means to me, and that it was important to have that balance with work, family life, but also with my personal enrichment, as well as with giving back to communities. That's what I feel, that balanced life has always, convinced me that growing in these four areas is a path to true success. And therefore, you see that giving back as a common theme, both with my professional life as well as giving back to communities. It took a profound effect later on in my life, but to answer your question, that was a path I chose rather than coming into this country to work.
Okay, I understand. You mentioned when you were working there for the company in New Jersey, after that, and the consulting, was it consulting through them, or was that your own company that you formed, and that's when you were doing the consulting?
So generally once you graduate from a master's program in the US, you get work authorization for about 3 months. Um, so to answer your question, this wasn't my company. I was consulting for another company as I worked my way towards naturalization and kind of immigrating into this country.
Okay. But when you formed that venture, Gautam, that was not Alpha Omega. That was something else, right?
That was another consulting company. That was something completely different. That's correct.
Okay. And you're still in the New Jersey area with this company that you
Correct.
formed. Okay.
Correct. And then I'm still in the New Jersey area, right? And then I'm consulting for the NJDP, and then I make a transition to pursue entrepreneurial ventures by trying to understand the dot-com bubble, right? By consulting in the East and the West Coasts, right? On the work authorization I had, and that continued until finally the dot-com bubble kind of took a turn, right? And then I decided to settle or move to the DC area so I could try my hand at federal contracting. um, Alpha Omega was hasn't been in business for very long, right? About 4 years ago, in August of 2016, we were less than a million in revenue. In August of actually this month, at the end of this month, we would have crossed 64 million, right? So we've kind of grown from 0 to 60 in 5 years almost. So Alpha Omega was created much later.
That's amazing
Like,
growth, which I want to get into in a moment here.
sure.
So what brought you to the DC area was saying, okay, federal government contracts and more opportunities here than New Jersey at the time.
Right. And also, I mean, if you recall, I spoke about my journey, my passion. Passion to kind of give back to this country. More importantly, so your professional, I'm always driven by a sense of passion, right? I'm probably not, I've had several colleagues that love an 8 to 5 job and, you know, that mundane nature of working for someone. Entrepreneurial ventures have always been attractive to me because it gives me that freedom, and it helps me follow my passion, and my sense of giving back. The DC area, right, is there are predominantly federal contractors, and I felt the best way that I could give back to this country in some significant way was to get into the federal contracting business.
Okay. And when you came here, was it your business you were starting or you were going with another company?
Incidentally, I was probably the fifth employee for a company called QSSI. It became infamous for the healthcare.gov implementation when it failed initially with CGI. QSSI came through by implementing the healthcare.gov implementation. But QSSI was my employer. And what I really liked about working for QSSI is I had a sense of independence where I could really use my entrepreneurial passion, right? There wasn't, although I had a boss and my boss was one of the partners who owned QSSI. He gave me the freedom to decide where I should invest my energy in. So I was managing a couple of projects. That brings me to the second thing that I'm passionate about is trying to bring about a significant change in the lives and careers of my coworkers. That really drove me to help my co-workers, people who reported to me, people on my teams to continuously grow in their careers. And so when you have three people and reporting to you, and you encourage them to grow, it automatically you grow yourself out of your current position. And there is nowhere else to move but upward, because my leadership saw that quality in me, the quality to kind of grow and develop folks under me. And the next piece is, you also understand, because of your entrepreneurial drive, you understand the business model. And grew my division in about 10 years to by 686 percentage points.
Wow.
Ultimately QSI got sold, and they had grown pretty large when they did get sold.
And after it got sold, what happened to your career then?
Actually, well before it got sold, right? As I told you, I probably not the person who loves a mundane job, 8 to 5, kind of doing the same things. And just basic, it did give me a very good understanding of the federal contracting business. So well before it got sold, I had grown my division significantly large. Had been commended by my leaders, and just following my passion, I decided to. Having transitioned my division over to the right people in late 2009, I decided to partner with a friend of mine who had a IT federal contractor. The company had maybe 100,000 in revenue, very small, and he had given me a chance to a chance to grow the business and buy. And get into an equity position. It was called sweat equity. So for every percentage I grew the company, I would succeed in getting a percentage ownership in the company up to 49%. He would still stay the majority owner. Great opportunity. I think within the first month, I brought in about 4 million work, right? So I was fully vested in my 49%. They were a couple of 100,000 in revenue, right? And so I was fully vested. Over the next 4 years, put in 33 proposals, 27 wins, and about 18 sole sources in the federal government. And this company had grown from virtually nothing to 14 million per year in revenue, and had brought in about over 100 million in total contract value to the company.
That is amazing. That's great. I want to go a little bit further into that.
Sure.
How did you, with just a couple months in, I think you said within the first couple of months, and went from a couple 100,000 to 4 million in revenue? What was the big differentiator there?
Yeah, and just to, just point of correction, it was a couple of, they were, basically 100 or 200,000 in yearly revenue when I joined, this friend of mine. So within the first 2 months, I brought in 4 million of total contract value. So I brought in a contract which was 4 million over 3 years.
Okay.
Not really 4 million a year. So anyway, to make a long story short, I had been supporting QSSI in the Department of Housing. And so when I planned to, kind of join this friend of mine with with growing his company, I kind of ran it with the leaders, who were very appreciative of what I had done for them. I had also developed a passion as well as an expertise in mergers and acquisition. When I said I grew QSI's division, part of it was through mergers and acquisitions. And so, given my mergers and acquisitions forte and QSI was looking to sell, they wanted me to be involved and help them in their sale. That was the promise that I had made to them. And they were very supportive of me moving and joining C3. For you to succeed in the federal contracting space, you need five things: customer relationships, um, past performance, right? Past performance, having supported contracts of similar size, scope, and complexity, key personnel, right? And a good technical solution and the right cost. These five things. Now, because I had the support of QSSI, my previous company that I wasn't really in an ownership position in, and I promised to kind of help, help them with their sale. Um, they were more than happy for to be a subcontractor to this company that had virtually no revenue. So together we had great past performance. I had exceptional customer relationships. QSI had great key personnel, people that I had mentored for years before that. They were excellent at coming up with a technical solution. I was fantastic with pricing something to win, and so that was the recipe that helped me grow this company, this friend's company, within a very short period.
That's amazing, the growth. So now you're a 49% owner, and several years into it, you mentioned multiple millions of dollars in revenue. What happens afterwards?
So, sometimes when, say, I mean, at the end of the day, a minority owner is a minority owner, right?
Yes.
Between the 49% and 51%, there is a huge difference, and it is not regarding the dollars. It's more regarding the direction you want to steer the ship in, right? And so at some point, me and my partner didn't really see eye to eye. I was more interested. I was less interested in the dollars that are coming. I could say that I felt my partner was a little penny wise and pound foolish, and I was strongly, I was very passionate about the mission of some of my customers. And again, we were adults, and I decided to take a buyout, right? And look for a company to buy to get me a similar hold. I mean, I didn't want to do the same thing again, starting from scratch.
Sure.
So what I did is I took a buyout, and the payment was structured over a year or 2 years, right? So the next best thing to do was to, kind of buy a business in the federal contracting space. So what I did is I shopped around for a few months, and then used a 7A loan. I don't know if you're familiar with the 7A loan. It's a loan that, that the Small Business Administration in the US makes available to entrepreneurs. And the way they make it, banks lend you the money, they guarantee 80% of the loan. And so what I did was I restructured the earnout for the acquisition as a seller note. And the seller note is considered equity injection into any debt, right? And so I virtually walked out of my company that I owned 49% into a company that I owned 100%, and was kind of in the same size. Only difference was I could now steer the ship in the direction I wanted. That was Alpha Omega Integration, and the company we acquired was called Trusted Mission Solutions. They had a trailing 12-month or months of 18 million per year. So that gave me these five ingredients that was important to succeed, and was one of the predominant reasons that Alpha Omega went from 0 to 60 million in less than 5 years.
I love that. And it sounds like a lot of it had to do with that background that you have in M&A, and mergers and acquisitions.
Yes. Yeah, I think the mergers and I mean, the federal acquisition regulations and mergers and acquisitions, they're unnecessarily complicated. So when you upskill yourself and reading has always been, my parents, my mom and dad taught me two habits. One of them was to read the newspaper every morning, and the second was to drink a cup of coffee every morning. The cup of coffee has increased to 3 cups of coffee, and then a couple of I mean uh, a couple of drinks every week, 1 or 2 drinks every week. Nothing uh, too bad. But anyway, this habit of reading the newspaper has always stayed with me, and I thank my parents for inculcating the love for reading. It makes you immensely powerful, right? Because between you and understanding something, there are a few books you can read. And that's exactly what I did when it came to the federal acquisition regulation. It's probably one of the most boring subjects that was ever created. Every time I opened a book on the FAR, I would go off to sleep. So I always tried to read it 15 minutes before I wanted to fall asleep. Um, the second thing was to learn about mergers and acquisitions, which was at the other end of the spectrum of interest. Very, very interesting. And so, when you combine the two, brings you, it brings you exceptional ideas of how to build a successful business in the federal contracting space, and tread somewhere nobody else has gone before. So nobody had, acquired a graduated AT. There are some regulatory compliance issues you have to navigate. Um, but having understood this business, it was easy for me to handle. So I'm giving you more than you asked for, but I wanted to answer your question.
No, and I appreciate it. What would you say? Because there's two different school of thoughts. There are people who want to do the startup and from zero build everything, and it can take a certain number of time. Or there's other people that prefer to acquire. Uh, what's your opinion as far as if you're chatting with an entrepreneur, Gautam, and you're telling them start up, or have you looked into possibly acquiring a business and growing it from there?
It's a fantastic question. At the end of the day, Otto, it all resolves to one point. You should have something that differentiates your business, right? So, nightclub, the differentiation is you have people who have a lot of time. You have underage kids in India where I was growing up who had a lot of time, right? That you wanted to use as an opportunity and rechannel, refocus towards something that was beneficial, and an underage nightclub was great. I mean, having people dance to music was a fantastic way of, getting people to not only focus their time but also staying healthy. A few years later, Otto, and I don't want to digress, in 2006, I took a sabbatical from when I was working with QSSI, because that giving back to communities, passionate that giving back passion was always there, and I went and I created a trans esterification plant to distill to distill Jatropha oil. Jatropha is a plant that is created as a ledge around farms to keep cattle out. So anyway, to transestify Jatropha oil into um, biofuel, right? And so I was able to put these plants, and I made those plants in a very crude fashion from tin cans that were used in India. But anyway, I built these transesterification plants, and I was successful in getting a couple of villages electricity. That venture was great from a personal satisfaction perspective. I got seed funding about $500,000, and I was supposed to get a 10 million roundie and a matching 10 million in the US. But I wasn't successful in getting that. And what it really taught me was that, and which is what I wanted to kind of explain today. For you to succeed in a business, you have to find this one piece that that is unique, that is consumed by a majority of people. So for every successful business, there is an idea that is consumed, right? Just having an idea isn't helpful. So when I started the nightclub, there was an idea which was consumed by a majority of people. When I failed in that, Jatropa biodiesel esterification plant, I had a great idea, but I hadn't mobilized that interest or the consumers of my product. So, coming to your question, when coming to Alpha Omega, right? Um, understood the industry. Now, the federal contracting is a unique space. You have consumers, the federal government, right? And they have a unique idea, right? And their unique idea needs that five important things to satisfy. So acquisition was a means to an end of that unique idea, right? So most people don't acquire to get into the federal contracting space unless they have deep pockets. So for someone who had no deep pockets to use a 7A loan, which is given by the federal government, and restructure it to acquiring a graduated 8A company, was where that innovation came in. It was an innovative idea, never was done before, and it had those two elements. It had a unique idea of being mission focused, and you had a customer, you had a consumer, the federal government. So my advice to folks that are at the forefront of technology or the forefront of innovation, right? They need to have an innovative idea and test that idea to have the consumer to consume it. Then it's a simple problem to solve, getting money from a series of angel and venture capitalists or PE, private equity or what have you, right? That's one. The second thing is, if you don't have a brilliant idea, buy a platform until you can think, or buy people that can come up with that idea, you know?
Mhm.
And so I did the latter, which is buy a platform. I have an exceptional leadership team. And as much as I may sound intelligent, Otto, let me not fool you. I'm the dumbest person in the room when I have my leadership team sitting with me, and they were the ones that have come up with that unique idea that the government consumer likes.
I love
Does that
that.
answer your
Yeah,
question?
definitely. When you purchased that first company that then formed Alpha Omega, you said it was around 14 million or so, right?
It was 18 million revenue trailing 12 months,
Okay.
right? That means, when I acquired it, the previous 12 months, they had made 18 million. They were the company's 3-year average revenue was about 11 million per year, 3-year average revenue. But that was a great platform. Yes. So, did you have a question on that?
Yes, yes. So my question was, you mentioned, I believe, the SBA financed a good portion of that. The other part, Gotham, was from the equity, the 49% of the previous company you were associated with.
No, not quite. So I took a buyout from the previous company,
Okay.
right? And when you take a buyout, you're basically your partner is trying to find the finances to pay you out, right?
Hmm.
And it takes a few years because you're trying to figure out finances and you don't agree with the value that he values your share, and so you take some time before you can come to an agreement. For us, it took maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Um, so what I did was, so I had the company that I had to buy was about 11 million average 3 years, right? I mean, I can tell you the price. It was about 7 million, 33 cents to a dollar of the trailing 12 months. So it was 18 million in the trailing 12 months, right? In the past 12 months, it had generated 18 million in revenue. I was paying 33 cents to a dollar of revenue and some. So it's about 7 million in revenue, right? For someone who doesn't have deep pockets, the 7 million is a lot of money. The 70 loan, right, is actually money given by a bank to you, right? Um, I mean, that was a substantial portion. A small portion of that, or a substantial portion of that, is guaranteed by the SBA. But the remaining amount has to come from somewhere. The remaining amount is about 25 to 30%. And that was me restructuring the earnout, right? You know what an earnout is in an acquisition, right? It's a promise saying, hey, I'll give you additional money if this company reaches this value that you think it's going to reach. Usually the seller says, hey, in 10 years, you could be a $1 billion company. I mean, just throwing that out there. So those promises are tied with additional money that the seller gets. Now, I converted it into a seller note or seller debt, right? And the difference is, I mean, I'm telling the seller the same thing. I will give you more money than you want, right? But that money is forgivable if you don't reach the targets that you tell me the company can take me to, right? So it's a similar structure. The latter is equity injection. It's money that you can take to the table, right? And so, I mean, I paid virtually nothing, and I walked out of my previous company, right, that I owned 49%, into the next company that I owned 100%.
Okay. I understand. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Sorry if it was too elaborate, yeah?
No, not at all. You've said many times throughout the episode how the purpose and the passion that drives you. What would you say drives and motivates you today?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was asking, what would you say drives and motivates you today?
And that's a fantastic question, Otto. And let me think about it for a minute. You know, what drives and motivates me has always changed over time, right? When I was young, I feel, as I told you, I'm always driven by a sense of passion. When I was small, what success meant to me was very different. And today, what success means to me is completely different. One common theme that has always been there is a sense of giving back. I mean, whether it is to give back to the world from the skills that you accumulate with environmental engineering, or you give back to this country that has given you an opportunity, or you give back to your co-workers, people who that you lead, your reports, or your bosses, by helping them make a significant change in their life. It's the common theme has been to give back. Taking this a little further, right? I believe true success is when you lead a balanced life between not only with work and your family life, but also with that personal enrichment and giving back to communities. And within each of these four aspects, you really want to achieve significantly. You want to really have achievements, right? In each of these aspects, you want to really bring about a significant change in the lives of people. You want to leave a legacy behind, and you want to be happy with what you do, right? And so this balanced growth with these four pieces of achievement, significance, legacy, and happiness in each of these four aspects is what's kind of driven me to be kind of successful in life. So, talking a little more about it, giving back to communities, I've urged every employee, and we have close to 300 employees who are spread around the US, to be model citizens and develop a passion to continue to give back. one of our core values is harmony, and it is exactly that work-life balance model that I spoke about. So we encourage our employees to kind of give back and be model citizens. Um, our giving back to communities over the past few years have have been kind of significant. And sometimes companies just like to satisfy their passion by throwing money at a problem. I think giving back goes a little beyond that. Now, let me give you an example. We've given back to several, nonprofit organizations that have a great cause. But our giving back goes a little further, and I'll give you an example. There's an N Street Village is a home for underprivileged and battered women in Washington, D.C. We partnered with that nonprofit maybe about 3 years ago, because one of our employees, his wife was working for that nonprofit, and we felt a real sense of giving back. It really helped our it helped my sense of moving towards being successful, be moving towards being driven, and moving towards my passion, right? But instead of just donating money or scheduling a fundraising or some other means of getting finances for the nonprofit, which we did, by the way, with N Street Village and several other nonprofits. What we also did is took it another level. We decided to partner with them and actually take some of the underprivileged and battered women and bring them into the economic mainstream by providing them strenuous training, retooling them, reskilling them, and actually providing, employing them and putting, have them assigned to contracts. It was a tremendous success, win-win every way around for us, for N Street Village, as well as for these underprivileged women.
Thank you for sharing that great example.
Thanks, Otto. Yeah.
Yes. What would you say, Gautam, is your biggest challenge right now with your role at Alpha Omega?
Sometimes you take words right out of my mouth, Otto. Just when we got into this call, I was kind of reflecting on that a little bit. So Alpha Omega, right? Just after the acquisition of Trust Mission Solutions, the most important thing in my mind was, the debt-laden company had to service their debt. We paid off a large part of it, given our success, right? But when when you're motivated financially, you decide to go after things that are winnable, right? You take the fastest path towards winning work. We did, and we were immensely successful. But that's also got us into 9 customers, right? I don't have the level of customer entanglement. All right. And when the customer entanglement may sometimes be looked at with a negative light, but that's truly not the case. It just means customer intimacy, where you're continuing to provide value to make customers successful, right? And so anyway, getting back to the customer entanglement component, we as much as I'm passionate about giving back to this country and making my customers successful, and we've developed a culture where every employee is focused on customer success. When you have 9 customers like we do, it becomes extremely difficult. So about a year and a half with COVID, right? We decided to focus our energy on 1 or 2 customers and really focus on 1 or 2 agencies within the customers, so we absolutely clearly understand the mission. So on every opportunity we go after, we ask ourselves, what's the mission of the customer, and what value, business domain wise, do we bring to the table to make that customer successful in achieving their mission? Now, walking down that path and staying disciplined or having that dying clarity to provide long-term results by having a relentless discipline of saying no to opportunities that don't fit on that path is my biggest challenge.
How do you say no to that?
You know, it's easier said than done. You know, you know, I mean, you just have to be disciplined and you have to look at the bigger picture. I mean, you know, every time a great shiny object, someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm an incumbent on this 100 million contract. Can you prime this for me?" I mean, it's a sure win. You know, you want to say yes, but no, thank you. I mean, this is not where I want to take the company. You're absolutely right. That's a huge challenge. Crossing that bridge and developing that discipline is kind of the most important. Otto, thank you.
What do you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your business career?
Great question, Otto. Great question. The one thing that I feel, when I started my career, I did not understand that, pursuing success monetarily and pursuing success from giving back to communities need not be divergent paths. They could, you could be, you could go on the same path, give back to communities, as well as, build a successful business by following the same path. I feel that was a learning experience. Good example is Alpha Omega, right? Everybody is passionate about us wanting to give back to this country, us wanting to give back to this customer, us having a passion to bring about a significant change in the people that work in Alpha Omega, to have them grow in their careers, to have them really benefit in a momentous way. We also continue to give back to communities in our realm of business. Sometimes we work with these giving back to communities initiatives to continue to support us in what we do. It's the path does not diverge. I did not realize that when I started with my first venture. I always felt it was an either or relationship, and that's where I was wrong.
I see. Coming to an end here now, what does the future look like for you and Alpha Omega the next couple of years?
I think we have a very bright future. One unique thing about Alpha Omega, one of the three unique things about Alpha Omega, internally we have a merger and acquisition team that's continuously looking at companies to buy and integrate. The only change that's happened over the last 2 years is we would only buy and integrate companies that are a strategic fit, that fits our direction of being mission focused, of focusing a lot more on customer intimacy and at the cost of being exceptional with other aspects. Our focus is to make customers being successful in the mission. I see ourselves, growing in this path. I think we'll continue to grow at 40% or more in top line revenue. But what I feel is we will increasingly grow in terms of gross profit. The way I look at gross profit, it's a perception of value the customer sees in your work. And I feel the value that the customer sees in the work will continue to increase, and that will result in an increase in gross profit. We will invest most of the money in the company, so we continue down this journey of mission focus. In summary, the two main things I see is growth of the company, not necessarily only in revenue, but also in the value that it provides customers as they are more and more successful in their missions.
Okay. When you're not busy at working with the company, what do you like to do in your free time?
I I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, Otto. So free time, what I mean, could you explain what that is? Unlike a lot of other business users, business owners, I mean, I I might have maybe a few 12-hour days, but I always recoup by keeping that balance between family and work. I'm in a soccer league, and I've been in the soccer league for the past 21 years. So I play soccer on every Sundays if I'm in town. Then my evenings go with my daughters. I still think you have 1,000 weekends you spend with your kids before they fly away, and I
Sure.
want to spend every one of those 1,000 weekends. So those are the two main things. I golf, I play racquetball. I have a personal trainer who comes twice a week, and I go to Orange Theory, and I have a Peloton at home. So I'm a little busy with that balance.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. Where could the audience find out more information about you and Alpha Omega?
You know, two places they could follow us on LinkedIn, right? We use LinkedIn as one of a means of keeping people updated on news about Alpha Omega. The second is you could use to get more information about me, my LinkedIn profile, and my posts on LinkedIn, my blogs on LinkedIn. And third is our website, which is www.alphaomegaintegration.com.
Fantastic. Gautam, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
You have a good one, Otto. It's wonderful talking to you.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.